Good morning, everyone. CBC News is reporting protesters who set up another camp near Tyendinaga, the site of Monday's police raid, are setting tires on fire around the tracks as freight trains move through. And this is 2 p.m. on February 26th. That's 2 days ago. Today's the 28th. But I'm showing you, and I'm just going to show you a burning pallet beside these rail tracks here. This is premeditated, okay? They've shown up with burning materials, they've shown up with accelerators, they've shown up with lighters. That's premeditation. They've planned this out, okay? I just want to point that out. It's important to note because that implies criminality, right? That implies pre-planning, that implies coordination, that implies, like, you didn't just show up and the protest, found this stuff and then they decided to light it on fire. There's a plan here, and the plan is to disrupt the rail service by lighting things on fire and putting it on the tracks. It's a plan, okay? Okay, so here's the pallet burning. Here's all the people.
You can see that
here it is.
Pile there. That's a
Thank
pallet that was set on fire and put on the tracks. Now that train slows down and it eventually comes to a complete halt. I'm sure that there were some on the train, the operators perhaps.
So, I mean, that's dangerous. You can't do that. That's terrorism. I said yesterday, that's the definition of terrorism, using violence and intimidation to achieve a political aim. Right? To have a political goal met, right? Get off our lands or something to that effect. That's not okay. You can't do that. It doesn't work that way. Here's the law, Section 248. Everyone who, Section 248, interfering with transportation facilities. Everyone who, with the intent to endanger the safety of any person, places anything or does anything to any property that is used for or in connection with the transportation of persons or goods by land, water, or air that is likely to cause death or bodily harm to person, is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for life. For life. And here is a 2015 case, and we're going to get to that in a minute, of people who had a plan to derail a passenger train, and they didn't even get to the acting out the plan part. They were arrested and charged, and they're spending time in jail. Well, there's some breaking news on that one too. But first, here's Tony Blair, who says, blockades are not terrorism, says Tony Blair, following an exchange with Conservative MP. Commissioner Brenda Lucki says enforcement is the last option. The last option? Why is enforcement the last option? The rule of law is such that, okay, if you don't have the rule of law, and the rule of law is the law is equally applied to everyone, right? Everyone who's an adult has this code of laws to abide by. And the job of the government is to enforce those laws, to make those laws and code them in law. And then the police have a responsibility to enforce those laws, right? And so it seems really, really inappropriate to have people committing acts of terrorism, using intimidation to achieve a political goal, and having that ignored by our government. This is the problem. Like, this is the crux of the problem. People are saying it's a lack of leadership. People are saying it's because Trudeau was out of the country. The crux of the problem is that the government is allowing this by not defining this, by not calling it what it is, by not saying this is terrorism. They are allowing this by proxy. They have police standing by while the trains are under attack. How can that possibly stand? Right? People are breaking the law and the police are at heel. Brenda Lucki says enforcement is our last option. Well, yeah, welcome to way past time to act. Our last option was before the fiery pallet landed on the tracks and made the train stop. You arrest those people. You put the fire out. You don't put people in danger. I can't imagine what the police on the ground are thinking, right? I mean, it is beyond the pale. It is unbelievable. Here's the exchange. It's worth listening to the whole thing. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm going to play the first question answer, and then it goes back to Mr. Blair. The sound is quiet because it's only coming out of one side, I think. So I apologize for that, but listen to how much Mr. Blair ums and ahs. It's the sign of somebody who's running away from what they're saying. I don't know. I don't believe him just because he can't get it out. It's really not out of character. Maybe he speaks that way, but it seems like he knows what he's saying is absolutely garbage. Like, I can't imagine him not knowing that, right? So anyway, here's the exchange. You come up with your own opinion of this. I have mine. I just told you what it is. Here we go.
What this resident wanted to know was if the current illegal blockades that have been happening across Canada are being deemed as a terrorist activity.
No, they're not.
So what would they fall under?
No, they're not. And he's just frustrating, right? Come on.
Or why would they not be intention of intimidating the public or a segment of the public with regards to its security? And again, they were wanting to know that. When I looked it up myself, I was curious.
Yeah, one of the challenges of people who read legislation, and it's how the law is applied and defined by our courts and by the police. You know, I will tell you the important work of protecting Canada and the work that we do globally and domestically in dealing with terrorist activity.
Okay, I'll stop it there. You see the stumbling that I'm talking about? Every word and every word. And I'm not trying to say, I mean, I have a stutter. There's a stutter that I deal with, and sometimes I search for words. That's fine, man. Speech patterns are speech patterns. This looks different than that. There's a difference there. So he says it's about how the laws are interpreted and applied in court. Here is the 2015. This is pretty recent. Like, it's not like in 2016 they said, you know what? That's a little harsh. Here's the City News, and this is, again, February 3rd, 2015. So 5 years ago. 2015 was 5 years ago. Wow. Train derailment plot, quote, very simple idea. Via rail terror trial hears. Terror trial? Well, I mean, not if you're lighting things on fire and throwing them onto the tracks. There's no terror trial for you. That's not terrorism. That's a very serious problem that needs to be discussed in high-level meetings and then not have anything happen. Yeah, right. Okay, here's the article. A plan to derail a train traveling between Canada and the US was a, quote, very simple idea that would kill scores of people and pave the way for more acts of terrorism. The trial of two men accused in the alleged plot heard Tuesday. The attack was characterized that way by Mr. Essinger, sorry, I'm not going to try his first name, in an audio recording of a conversation that he had with an undercover FBI officer while the pair were on their way to meet his co-conspirator, Raid Jasser. Jasser and Essinger, doesn't matter, both face multiple terrorism-related charges in the alleged Via Rail plot, which sought to target a train between New York and Toronto. Not guilty pleas have been entered for both men. An undercover FBI officer who gained the pair's trust told the trial that he first came to learn of the train plot while driving from Montreal to Toronto with Essinger to meet Jasser. The secret audio recording from that drive were played on the trial on Tuesday. Quote, I am working on this idea with the brother from Palestine, Essinger is heard saying in the recorded conversation, referring to Jasser, who is a permanent resident of Palestinian descent, permanent resident of Canada of Palestinian descent. Okay, the train is going very fast on the railway, but it's on the bridge. So, like before the train passes by an hour or two, what we do, we make a hole in the bridge. That hole would be made by two people and would be about 5 to 6 meters deep, Essinger is heard saying. So where the train is going very fast on the bridge, he cannot see the hole. And when he starts to see the hole, he starts to decrease speed. It's too late for him. He will go through the hole and it will be a big accident. And there's a lot of there's a lot of ... Like there's a lot of piecing together what he said. So just be aware of that. This is the newsification of what he said. I'm sure the transcripts are available. I haven't found them. Back to this. Essinger, a Tunisian national who was doing doctoral research on nanosensors in Quebec, is heard imploring the undercover officer to keep the plan a secret and notes that it is, quote, a very simple idea. Quote, there is no missile, nothing, he's heard saying. We know we can have two people, each one, he cut his side, and there is the hole. The bridge which would be selected for the attack had to be an isolated area away from houses, Essinger told the undercover officer, adding that he and his brother from Palestine had already scouted a few locations. The attack also targeted a train between US and Toronto, he said, to ensure both Americans and Canadians would be victims. Finally, the plan also included a video which would warn of further attacks, Essinger said. We will say this operation is just beginning. If you don't get out from our land, we will do more and more, he is heard saying, because Canada and Americans have armies. The undercover officer also told the court that Essinger had another idea to recruit a Muslim chef to poison troops on an army base, but little progress had been made on that project. All these plans were an effort to send a message to the Western world to remove themselves from the occupation overseas of the Muslim lands, the officer explained. The Crown has alleged Jasser and Essinger were motivated by Islamic extremism and spent months plotting to murder as many people as they could. The two men were arrested in April 2013. Okay, so here's the 2019 update. August 2019, new trial ordered for 2 men accused in Via Rail terror plot. 2 men found guilty of terrorism charges in connection with a plot to derail a passenger train between Canada and the U.S. were granted a new trial Tuesday after Ontario's highest court found the jury that convicted them was improperly selected. Raya Jasser and Mr. Essinger were found guilty in 2015 on a total of 8 terror-related charges between them. They were sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole until 2023. That's earlier than you would expect. The two challenged their convictions, and lawyers for Jasser argued the trial judge mistakenly rejected their client's request regarding the method of jury selection. The lawyer appointed to Essinger, who continues to be self-represented, agreed in written arguments that a new trial had to be ordered on those grounds. And that's where I'll leave that there. The rest of it is in there. It just goes. The rest of it is in the link. Link is in the description if you want to have a read. National Post is reporting Canada is broken, says a majority of Canadians in a poll taken in the wake of the rail blockades. This is February 28th. That's today. And this is published by the National Post. In a time of widespread disagreement and ever-increasing polarization, there remains a bitter solidarity among Canadians in the belief that the government doesn't know what it's doing. In the wake of regional discontent from Western provinces and blockades jamming up the country's rail network, a towering majority of Canadians agree with the statement, right now, Canada is broken. 69% of Canadians agree with the statement, rising to 83% in Alberta, found a Dart and Morrow Blue poll conducted for the National Post. This is one of those few polls that I looked at, and I've been doing this for 30 years, so I did polling around the Oka crisis. I was astonished when I saw some of these numbers, but I'm not surprised, said longtime pollster John Wright, a partner with Dart. It sounded like he was going for surprise there at the beginning, didn't it? Okay, anyway, back to the article. The poll spells bad news for Justin Trudeau, with the majority of people believing that the country is not heading in the right direction and that the Prime Minister is not governing well. The Liberals also get most of the blame for the rail blockades. And on Trudeau's signature promise to help Indigenous people, 2/3 of Canadians don't believe he has delivered on that pledge. A lot of the blame has been centered on the Prime Minister and the Liberal government, said Daniel Beeland, the director of McGill Institute for the Study of Canada. Beeland said that the trouble started for Trudeau early on. Yes, I agree. Because the blockades began when he was out of the country campaigning for a seat on the United Nations Security Council. There was some form of void. The government left the impression, at least many people came to the conclusion, that there was no one really in charge of the situation. On the topic of the rail blockades, only 27% of Canadians think Trudeau has handled the situation well, while the premiers get a 45% approval rating on the issue. And I mean, no, it's been handled awfully. It's been handled absolutely terribly. It's been misstep after misstep. After ignoring it and hoping it would go away, he comes in and says basically, "Yeah, we're gonna negotiate." And how dare you? We're disqualified for even daring to suggest that we take these people off the tracks. Disqualified for the meeting. Oh, terrible. And then, like, I mean, 3 days, 4 days later, 3 days later, he says, "Okay, the blockades have to come down now. My patience is done." Right. So it's just an awful, terrible thing to set a precedent like that and come out that week and then follow up with saying that blockades have to come down and realizing that the protesters and the people that you refused to act on in the first place because their goal was not what you thought. Their goal was just to shut things down. Doubled down and took all that you were willing to give and said, "What else you got?" Right? It wasn't enough because you never negotiate with terrorists because they will not ever be satisfied. Right? I mean, like, he's older than me, right? Here's Jason Kenney. He says, "Thank you to the protesters for helping increase support for the Coastal GasLink project. 10% in 1 week. So February 10th, 12th is the red. So 51% support it. And then a week later, February 26th, or 25th, 26th, 61% support it. So maybe 2 weeks. Apologies. And oppose it, 36% down to 27%. Interesting stuff, right? Interesting. And here's Pierre Poilievre. He's talking about this is the emergency debate in the House, and this is just Poilievre's piece of it. It was very interesting. I was going to play it, but I think I'm just over time here. The last little story is, if you're in Winnipeg, get your PPE. This is Global News reporting, ill passenger removed from plane at Winnipeg Airport with possible case of novel coronavirus. But they didn't quarantine anybody. Very concerning. Very concerning. That's what I was saying off the top. The lackluster response, the lackluster. I mean, I don't know if he's wearing a proper respirator, but that's not full PPE gear. Not what I've seen for guidelines in healthcare, even in Ontario currently. So, and here's the Ontario numbers. Whew, that was loud. Sorry about that, everyone. Anyway, status is in Ontario. We've got 1 presumed positive and 2 more positive cases and 3 resolved. Do you think they're going to add a deadline in here? I don't know if they're going to add a deadline. I think all the numbers go in resolved. I think you're going to have to like do a click to find the breakout dead numbers. Like when somebody dies, because it's not an if, it's going to be a when. I don't know. Over under? Anybody want to? Yes, no? I don't know. Versus right on here. I don't think they're going to put it on here. I think I don't think they want those optics. I think our government is as in on censorship as the Chinese government is. I think it's just being laid bare here, right? We'll see though. If the death line comes up, I'll eat my hat. Okay, no, I won't. I'll just say sorry. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com and CanadaReport.co and have a wonderful, wonderful day. It's Friday, right? It's Friday. Enjoy the weekend.